We're all born musicians. Since the beginning of time, how else have we communicated with each other than through a series of rhythms and sounds? Every one of us has a heartbeat. And that heartbeat is a rhythm that connects us to the earth, the pulse and the rhythm of the earth that we exist in. The moment we take our eye off that, something in us has died. I had a light bulb moment a year ago when I was at the South Bank Centre for the Kinshasa Orchestra concert, the Kinshasa Orchestra from the Congo. This is an orchestra that had put themselves together 10 years before from nothing. They were self-taught, none of the infrastructure that we enjoy so much over here, yet they were driven by the passion of doing something important together. I was very struck with slight shock while I was at this concert because there was an uncomfortable feeling. To begin with, I was invited by our culture minister, Ed Vasey, up to the reception on the 6th floor. And I entered the reception to a look of shock and surprise and worry on the face of the head of music, because she'd forgotten to invite me to this particular concert. And which was fine. I was cool with that. But she said the other thing that she was frightened and shocked about with herself, she told me to look over in this direction. I looked in that direction, and I said, oh, the BBC television cameras seem to be doing an interview with my friend Tasmin Little, who's a white English solo violinist. Ah, fantastic. She said, yes, but what does Tasmin know about Africa? So I said, Gillian, don't worry about it. We're used to this. You've been telling our stories for centuries. But that got the clock ticking. I returned into the concert hall. Pretty full Royal Festival Hall. They played Beethoven, they played Berlioz, and they played some beautiful local traditional music of their own. I looked around at the faces in the audience amongst me, and what made me feel really uncomfortable was the fact that people were looking incredulously and surprised that here was a group of 60, 70 people, all dark-skinned, playing classical music to a very high level. Now, this is the 21st century. We didn't just arrive here. And, you know, it's not a novelty, and the fact that they've had access, they've created the access themselves, they just got on with it. I left that hall that day knowing that I had a job to do, because I have spent the last 35 years as a professional classical musician, double bassist, on the international concert platform, and I know how good it is to play music. Music is good. It is inherently good. All music is good, be it classical, hip-hop, reggae, jazz, funk, high life, Afrobeat. It's all good. But it's even better if we can involve ourselves personally, physically, in the creation of it. We've become a consumer society, gradually, over the years. We just take and run along with that, rather than give something back. Now, I know from my own personal experience how good music is for you. And that is because of all the skills that I have learnt from the study of it, all the core life skills that we need to run all of our lives, not just our musical lives, but banking, nursing, being a surgeon, being a doctor, being a lawyer. The core skills that I learned as a young child learning music were discipline, tolerance, coordination, breathing, perseverance, but most of all, listening. Not just listening to myself, but listening to each other. Now, this is a skill that I think is, we could brush up on that a bit around the world, people. And I know for a fact that that's one of the main things that compels me, and it's one of the reasons why I am determined to do something about the gross imbalance in classical music in UK as well as the rest of Europe and probably a lot of the world. In our orchestras, we have barely 1% of black and minority ethnic musicians. Yet, graduating from music academies, conservatoires, there's about 6%. So what happened to that 5%? I'm going out and creating something that's going to take care of that 5%. It occurs to me that because so much equipment and private individual tuition is involved, that music has become prohibitively expensive. Learning an instrument has become prohibitively expensive. And so we're narrowing it down more and more and more so that it resides even more with the middle classes, the privileged, the privately educated. Now, when I was a child, it was quite a few years ago, but every single state school in this country had a thriving music program. Every single day of my school career began in the hall where we assembled, and what did we do all together at the same time? We sang. Didn't matter if you could sing in tune. It didn't matter if you sang on a drone. It didn't matter if you had perfect pitch. It didn't even really matter what we were singing about. The most important thing that did matter was that we were singing and doing it together as a community, as a school community. That has stayed with me, and it continues to carry me through because I am definitely inspired and given the motivation to go on in my life. Life is a challenge for all of us, and I have that inside me. I am music, as you all are. When I was 6, I had the opportunity to go a little bit further with music. Now, I was one of those hyper little kids in class who just could not get enough of everything. I had to be in everything, on everything, inside the classroom and outside the classroom. One of those children that, these days, school teachers get frustrated with. But I was a busy little girl. I was a curious child. And one of the things my mother told me in later life was, Chichi, a curious child is a healthy child. A curious child is an intelligent child. Now, with that curiosity, I needed to know about everything that was going on around me. And so the minute we were offered to play a recorder, I was the first in that queue at recorder ensemble. I think it was lunch breaks. This little wooden tube or plastic tube with holes in. Now, it might seem something very, very small, but it was actually very, very significant for me and for the rest of my life. Covering those holes and playing them at a certain time to be in time with each other required listening, coordination, breathing, touch, the actual connection with the instrument. And all of those things, even with a little instrument as small as a recorder, helps to connect you as a person. Now, these days, you can just press a button and there's the music, which is fine. We all can enjoy listening to music and doing what we do to music, be it dancing or hoovering or whatever we do to music. We all have a connection with it. And I know for a fact that the closer we get to it, the better it is for us, if we can involve ourselves with a little bit more. A year after I started Recorder Ensemble, I was playing with one of my best school friends who happened to live a few doors down the road from where I lived. She was called Pamela Bryce. I used to knock on the door, in I went, and we played in her room or wherever we played around the house. She used to want to play with dolls. They were never really my thing, but, hey. One day, I heard a sound coming from a part of the house that I'd never been into. So I followed my ears, and they led me to a room I'd never been into before. I opened that door, and sitting in that room was her big brother, Trevor. He was all of 13, but he was enormous to me at the time. And I said, I want to do that. He was playing Boogie Woogie 12-bar blues. And it just looked fantastic, being so close to this instrument that was making, he was making it to make a sound. I said, I want to do that. And he just said, oh, get out of here, little squirt. Come back another time. And then I looked at him and I said, I'll leave as soon as you show me how to play that. And so he took one look at the determination in my eye, and he knew I meant what I was saying. And so a few minutes later, I was sitting up at the piano, and a few minutes later, I was also playing Boogie Woogie 12-bar blues. Now, every single day for at least 4 or 5 weeks, I went back to Pamela's house, knocking on the door, just to get inside the house. Can I play with Pamela? Just to get inside the house. And as soon as I got inside the house, I didn't play with Pamela at all. I just ran off into that room and hammered out the blues until I'd outstayed my welcome. Then one day, when I realized I'd outstayed my welcome, my mother had come to pick me up, and it was autumn term, so the nights were drawing in a bit earlier. And as we walked up the road to our house, she said, Chichi, I know when you go to play with Pamela, you don't play with Pamela at all. All you do is hammer out the blues on that piano. And so I thought, I've been rumbled. That's it. That's the end of my music activity. But she said no. And because my parents understood the kind of child I was, they knew I had to engage with as much as I could, and as much creative engagement as possible. We didn't have a TV. We didn't have all these things, a car or any of these things. We didn't feel poor either, actually. Our house was always full of music, with us singing or dancing, or both. And so they found a way, which sometimes meant working overtime, putting in extra hours to get me piano lessons. They found some rickety old bicycle. We lived in a rural village about 4 miles outside Canterbury. I would cycle 4 miles as a 7-year-old into central Canterbury every Saturday morning to have my music lessons. Now, try doing that these days. You'll be done for child abuse. Anyway, that stayed with me. And a year after that, I got spotted by a sprint coach because I was also a very, very fast runner. And I was spotted by the main sprint coach at Canterbury Athletic Club. And I spent the next year actually following what was a national sprinting career, heading towards being a 100-meter sprinter internationally. In my final year at school, I was at a girls' grammar school. By then, I was in Berkshire. In my final year at school, I suffered a terrible, debilitating knee injury that ended all aspirations as a sprinter. This was incredible for me. And literally, I was in hospital for 2 weeks. The day I came back to school, my head of music took me and said, Chichi, everyone's devastated. We have an idea for you. You are such a musical personality, because I was involved in all school music. I played in the recorder ensemble still. I sang in the school choir, and I had just won the annual school music competition playing Chopin on the piano. So I'd kept those skills going up the whole time because I needed to be active. I needed to be involved. He said, look, the prize that you've just won will give you lessons on, we'll bring in an instrumental teacher, and we think you have got what it takes to have a career in classical music. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I followed him anyway. He led me to a room and opened the door. This room in the school I'd never been in, it had 2 double basses in it. And I said, but sir, check me out. Have you noticed I'm the smallest girl in 6th form? I'm 5 foot nothing. And they've got to be the biggest instruments in the orchestra. But then he said the right thing. he looked at me and he said, "Yes, but Chichi, when have you ever been fazed by a challenge?" I was hooked. Why was it so important for me to create Chineke? Why am I not seeing anyone other than myself in the last 35 years in orchestras and ensembles that I play in across the world? Literally, I'm on my own. I had the feeling that, well, I was questioning all kinds of reasons why it might be. Was it lack of talent? Was it lack of interest? Was it lack of access? I came to realize that was the reason. Now, all the wonderful education system that we do have here that prioritize maths, technology, science, what have you, at the expense of all the creative arts. Now, if we could balance it a little bit more, because everything that you learn, as I said earlier, all those skills will help improve your abilities in every other subject that you lay your hands to. Not that we're all going to be classical professional musicians, of course not, but just the skill set. Now, next thing, I had to find my players. I searched high and low, because at the moment there's only one person in this orchestra, and that's me. As well as knocking on all of the doors of the establishment, British Council, government, South Bank Centre, Conservatoires UK, all of the orchestras, every single one of them said, "Chichi, this is fantastic. We are with you on this. It's time that something like this started." And Sir Simon Rattle, the conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic, who's coming back to conduct the London Symphony Orchestra, gave it his full blessing. And the South Bank Centre said to me, Gillian Moore, head of music, she said to me, "Chichi, we've waited years for someone like you to come forward and start something like this. It has to be led by one of your own." I searched high and low. I came across people who had a mixture of reasons why they had excuses why not to play. Some of them were very complex emotional issues. Some of them even resulted in physical issues, like, "Oh, I've got RSI in my wrist," which is a repetitive strain injury. And I said, "Well, come along anyway and sit somewhere near the back, and if you're in pain, just sneak off quietly or just put your instrument down and then just play when you think you feel ready." All these players converged on London, and the beauty of it is that it's not London-centric. I felt that was very, very important. Sheffield, Nottingham, Paris, New York, Brussels, Glasgow, you name it, they were all here. We all arrived, and we had 5 days of rehearsals. I kept my eye on the couple of people who said that they had terrible injuries and they might not be able to play. Did they put their instrument down for 1 second? No. Did their height get taller and taller over the week? Yes. And by the end of it, these people walked off that stage, the Chineke Orchestra stage, a foot taller and chest out. I received a call from a parent saying, "Chineke has changed my child's life. They are now going to have a career in classical music." So, one of the things that I really discovered, to my joy, was the fact that one of the main reasons why we don't see many people of ethnic minority is not because of lack of talent. The talent is there. And we had all of the press at our sold-out concert at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, so sold out that people were turned away at the door. We woke up the next morning to 5 stars review in The Guardian that not only said, was this a cultural, incredibly important event, but this was music making of the highest quality. And it's one of the things that I said to the whole orchestra, let us be judged by our music. Music does not judge gender, sexual orientation, height, weight, wealth, social status, political preference. Music does not discriminate. So, the orchestra has started. We had an incredible junior orchestra that left people scattered in tears afterwards. These, again, were children coming from all over the country. And I know that one of the people in charge of the photographs here is the father of little Kanzi, who was one of my violinists. And it was a pleasure to have her. Up until a year ago, I did not think about it because I'd existed in a white world, because I'd grown up in a white environment. And so I never thought about colour. I've never used my colour to define myself. I am who I am. Now, a year ago, I had a dream. And if you have a dream, you can do it. Thank you.